Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Loving the Journey. I'm Donna Cundy, and today I am joined by Heather Morgan. Heather has a fantastic story, a really inspiring story that she's going to be sharing. Her podcast is Wandering the Wild Mess, and you can also reach her at wanderingthewildmess.com. We're talking about Heather's journey behind the microphone and what it changed in her as she began to have these conversations. So, Heather, first of all, welcome. Great to have you here today. And before we started to record, I was saying your story is so powerful. So I'd really love, as much as you'd like to share about who you are and why you started podcasting in the beginning.
Yeah. So thank you, Donna. I appreciate it. And sometimes it's crazy. I think people don't realize how empowering their own stories are. Because when it's your story, it's just your journey and you've just been through it. But when you hear from others that they needed some part of your journey to inspire theirs, you realize how important sharing your story becomes, right? But my story, a lot of it really, I did the typical life, born and raised in the same place, went to school there, knew all the same people, did the thing, got married, all of those things. And I lost my dad in my 20s, and that was very difficult for me. And it kind of just adds to my story now, even where I'm at. But I ended up getting married, doing the whole dance, corporate career, all the things. And there became a point about 3 years ago where that was no longer where I was meant to be. And I knew that. And during the whole separation and divorce journey, I got I don't know what you call it, like a ping knowing I'm not supposed to live in Utah anymore. That's where I'd lived my whole life. So I ended up, a lot happened. The podcast talks about it, but I end up moving across the country alone to Nashville, Tennessee. And I didn't know anyone. I was literally just starting over and fresh. I really don't even know how I got the courage sometimes when I look back now to just up and leave everything I ever knew and move across the country. And after that, it was a very wildly messy process. And I ended up taking a sabbatical and leaving my corporate career a few months after moving. So a lot was happening and never thought about starting a podcast. That wasn't really a thought in my head. But as I was driving to a TED Talk in Nashville, I got another little inkling that said, start a podcast. And I went to the TEDx talk, and strangely, how these synchronicities work in life, the first woman I met said, do you want me to take your picture? And we started talking. I go, what do you do? And she goes, oh, well, I have a corporate job, but I also have a podcast. And I thought, wow, because I never even met anyone at this current point in my time that had a podcast. And then I just claim it, hadn't named it. And then I meet someone that does. And so that's kind of how the whole seed got planted. And then I, as any podcaster knows, or anyone thinking about sharing a story, there is a moment where you're like, can I be that scene? Can I use my voice? Can I do that thing? And so obviously it wasn't just I started a podcast the next day. You stew with what you know you should do until you're ready and find the courage to do it. So that's how the journey began.
Wow. There's so much bravery in your story already. Like, just to pick up and why Nashville? What was it about Tennessee that?
Yeah. The funny thing about that, Donna, is that I learn now a lot of people are moving to Nashville, Tennessee, because there's a lot of creatives here, which is exciting.
Okay.
But I, like you, did not know that. Like, I lived in Utah, in Salt Lake City. A lot of people, especially from California, were moving there. Like, I just thought everyone was moving to Utah. I didn't know where everyone else was moving. But one night I had been probably drinking a little bit too much wine, and I was like, where am I going to live? And I was thinking, I have family in Oklahoma. I love Montana. And so I've been an out west girl. But then I was like, it's too close. And so I map dotted this town that I live. It's 30 minutes outside of Nashville, Hendersonville. Never even heard of it. Nothing. I just thought, oh, it's a lake town. It looks nice, whatever. So I had clicked on a house just looking at it. Well, I must have clicked something. The next day, a realtor called me and said, do you want to come see this house? I'd never been to Tennessee, Donna, in my life. And I was like, you're so messy in that moment. I'm just like, sure, like maybe this is the sign that I was looking for. So a few months later, I hopped on a plane and I said, when I touch down, I'll know if I'm meant to be in Tennessee. And it was a 100% yes. So I didn't
Wow.
make it. There was still a journey of time again, kind of like the podcast. It's just like I knew, but I didn't know how. I think that's a lot of
Mm.
times what happens in our journeys. We know the direction, but we don't know how.
Yeah, it sounds like you're committing to the yes, and then you're allowing the how to show itself.
And
Whether
that's been a key, I think, constant reminder in my journey since changing my whole life is that so much
changing my whole life. Oh my gosh. You say it just like, I'm just like changing my whole life.
like literally it was because divorce really is an identity death. If
Mm,
you went through it, it's like everything that you were, every way that people knew you, and I don't have children, but just even the title of wife, having a husband, having your community, like the friends, dynamics just change. Everything that you've known has been ripped away from you. And so you really are like, with what's left, you got to think like, how do I rebuild? And it's beautiful if you allow it to be, but it's painful and it's all the things that you were not prepared for that no one could possibly tell you what it's going to be like. There's just
mm.
there's no one that can prepare you for the level of grief. Like I mentioned at the
Oh,
beginning,
yeah.
my dad dying, and I grieved that again because I lost him when I was in a relationship with my ex-husband before we got married, which, that's a whole other thing of did I keep him there because he knew my father? And that's another piece I'm unpacking and not consciously, but as part of your journey. So I'd never been without my father or my husband in my entire life. And then I'm ripped away with neither. And so the grief of not having my dad to rely on anymore, I'm just alone. And so it's like here I am. And that's on a key on the podcast because I was so alone that I was like, I cannot be the only one feeling this way.
Hmm.
And so I just had to hit record and be like, please let this find who needs it.
I just got little goosebumps on that one. Wow, powerful. So your podcast is sharing your story, not in the um interview style. You're sharing what bubbles up in your day.
So it started that way. So I'm at almost like 80, a little over 80 episodes. I just started doing guest interviews now, like just only have done 4. So it's a different dynamic. But
Hmm.
the beginning, it was really just me telling the story and relating it to other people what they're going through. So trying to show through my storytelling of what I've been through, why it will work out for someone else feeling like, how is this going to work out? Because a lot of leaving something that even when you know it's not meant for you is missing what's familiar because you're
Hmm.
that's safe. Even if it isn't what you want, it's what you know. We our nervous system's just how we are. We acclimate to what we know. And so I wanted to show people on the other side, yes, it's hard, but you will make it through. You have the capacity and the power. Like I'm no different than anyone else trying to make it through. I'm just believing that I will. And I wanted to inspire others to believe that they will make it through too. So it's storytelling and saying, look, it's not so scary when you kind of see someone else's path and how they paved their way.
Yeah. You've mentioned storytelling several times. Where did you learn storytelling? How did you learn to apply that?
I've loved it since I was writing since I could pick up a pencil, right? I've loved to tell
Really?
stories and
Okay.
and I remember even I've always wanted people to feel less alone. I think that's one thing that I've
Mm,
always had in my life, you know? And so I've used writing to kind of like tell the story so someone goes, "Oh, I feel that way too." Because I realize that as immediately as you hear someone else went through something, there's a piece of you that are like, it's a weight that like, oh, because a lot of times
mm.
when we're going through really hard things, we're like, this is just me and me against the world. I don't have, no one gets this. No one understands. And that's so isolating. It feels like you feel like a victim. You feel abandoned. You feel alone. You feel like ostracized. Like I'm just, and it's easy when you think you're alone to loop the victim mentality, which I learned early in my life was never beneficial for anyone. And so when I story tell and people can see parts of themselves in my story, then they're like, oh, well, then I can do that. I'm kind of like her. Or, I have a similar thought. And it allows them to kind of see their path out of blaming and shaming and doubting themselves and allowing them to say, like, things happen that are really hard
Mhm.
and we also get through them. Like, both things can be true. And we
Yeah.
can't really change our life by focusing on the shoulda, coulda, wouldas because they've already been. And so we have to find a way to say, those things happen. I did the best that I could with who I was at that point in time. And now I'm on a new path.
I really love that. So with your storytelling behind the microphone when you're podcasting, do you write it the story first and then speak it, or is it really off the cuff improv?
The cuff improv for sure.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I try to get a theme, I have like kind of an idea or a theme, and keep the threads moving together. But high level, it's just what I feel called to speak to. I really think sometimes when someone finds you, they might need that message, right? And so it's just whatever feels called. Sometimes I have a pretty clear idea, but then something takes me down a path and I'm like, I guess we're going here. And so it can be very vulnerable because coming from a corporate background, right? I'm like, I said this like, I posted something about this and I was like, it's really interesting. Even posting some of the clips on LinkedIn, like you have this like buttoned up image in the corporate world that you're like, can I tell my personal story and be
Mhm.
accepted for that? And it's really allowing to be like authentically yourself and realizing we all just have challenges. And so, yeah, when I think it's important to share vulnerable stories about my life because it's different than just telling people what to do. I'm telling them what I've lived through. And that is a different level of storytelling that connects people from a way that I don't think that just this is what you should do does.
Right. Yeah, and I'm glad that you said that. I really appreciate what you said, that you're showing your humanness versus your corporate persona. I spent 20 years in the United States Army. And so when I come out and you look at my profile now, or some of the things that I say or do is very, I put that aside. It was hard to do. Even in the military, sometimes they called, I was being accused of likership and not leadership, because I was who I am. I could lead, but, so I'm glad that you're able to come out and share so authentically, because I think there's a lot of people that might be afraid to do that.
Oh, I 100% agree that a lot of because it kind of feels like conflicting identities because our minds want to
Yeah,
just be one way, right? Like we can only be like this niche or this corporate girly. Like I
or
was
the
a
mask
wife.
that everybody sees.
Yes. Like different personalities, but when you allow yourself the openness, I think people don't I think we judge it more than other people really do, and the people that do are just dealing with their own things that they're just not ready to be that authentic, and that's okay, right? But we just have to understand that. When I started posting, I on LinkedIn, I was like, I just have to do it. I actually had and I worked for like Fortune 500 companies, right? Over a decade. So I had one of my pretty high up leaders at one of the Fortune 500s that I worked for. Never was like writing anything on my post, but had messaged me and said, hey, I just want you to know that I've been listening to your podcast and I don't think it's
Mm,
messy at all. I really commend what you're doing. You should keep going, and it's someone silently buttoned up high up in a Fortune 500 that is just witnessing. And I had worked with him kind of indirectly, not super directly, but enough to connect, right? But then he's seeing me, and obviously, there's something in that when people reach out. And that's what kind of helps is that we're so afraid, but there's people going, gosh, I wish I could do that. I wish I
mm.
could share my story because we're all here wanting to be seen no matter what our title and what our careers and what our because that's the only way we know that we're accepted for who we truly are. And
Mm.
so when someone sees someone else doing that, it's like it becomes more acceptable. We're kind of paving the way, Donna, if you think about it. Some of these podcasters, like when we're doing this, we're allowing the everyday person that their path isn't actress or like in the, we're not those career paths where being on screen and vocal is normal. That's their career. So it's acceptable. But when you take someone that's an everyday person with a voice and you will put them in a place to speak and they're doing it openly, it's a whole different, like, it shows other people in that other worlds, army, military, corporate, all those things, like,
Right.
I can have a voice too if that's pulling me. And that's
Mhm.
empowering for people. That's why we're here trailblazing that as something that can become something for anyone that wants that to be their journey or feels the call to let that be their journey.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. You said you're coming up on 80 episodes. Congratulations, that's a big deal. Was there ever a time you thought about quitting or where it wasn't as consistent as you wanted it to be?
So weirdly, I never thought about quitting because I love it so much. And I realize it's in my zone of genius. If you know that book, The Big Leap,
Nice.
I highly recommend it. I
Yeah.
know it's in my zone of genius because I don't even feel like I'm working or doing anything when I do it, minus the back end stuff, which Donna, but like the actual podcasting, not so much. Um, Never a time, but I've always thought from a growth perspective, because I come in strategy, whatever, like maybe I should niche, just go to women, just do this. The strategy part has kind of overwhelmed me at some point, Donna, but it's crazy. I'll tell you that you'll always know because I had recently thought, it's a cool story. Maybe I'll try to niche, maybe should I niche to women? Like mine has 50% male listeners, which is crazy
Really?
for a female.
Wow.
Yeah. So because my male listeners really enjoy that I'm not shaming and blaming my
Yeah.
ex-husband. I'm telling the true story of this is where I messed up. This is what I needed. This is all the things. But I know that if you niche, you can grow faster, right? Because you just target. But I never really felt called. My dad's part of my story. I love men. I don't promote the divide. I don't see it being meaningful for anyone, but I know this is just my journey. Everyone has their own. So I had thought that. So kid you not, I wasn't ready to do it, but it was a thought in my mind. Should I just niche to like women over 35 and this and that? So then, but I have younger female listeners too. So there's all these things. So I get to the salon and my friend says, she said, let me write a review on your podcast. Well, we pulled out my podcast and I saw this review that I hadn't noticed. And it was a man and it was such a long review. And he had written that he got divorced. His wife of 20 years left him, no explanation, didn't know. And that he had been reading self help books for 2 years, and none have been more instrumental in his growth and acceptance and forgiveness of her and himself and all the things than my podcast. That it changed the
Wow.
trajectory of his life, that he was just going on like very thoughtfully writing this review that we know, like getting reviews isn't like it's. So I'm thinking, okay, this is the sign that this is the path. If I'm healing a man's wounded heart from his divorce and now he's showing up in his life for his children and going the path that he wants to go because of my podcast, this is it can be a slow burn. Right, Donna? Like, sometimes we wanna just speed, but I'm kinda like slow and steady wins the race, consistent in my lane of what I do, and that's everyone. That's all souls that are looking for purpose and understanding and compassion for each other and self-leadership and self-trust when they need that mirror, like, I'm there, and I don't want to niche to just a demographic of people because it's a human experience. It's not a niche, to one age group or gender.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how would you classify your podcast? Is it a relationship podcast? Is it a self-healing? Do you have an offer that somebody works with you from listening to the like, how does this all fit together?
Yeah. So I would say it's kind of like self-improvement. My motto is really
Okay.
trust your path no matter how messy it looks. That's kind of where I say that's how I, like, loop it all
Yeah.
together, and I feel like everyone's on a path, and then it gets messy, and they're like, "What do I do?" So it's really for anyone who's I say starting over, but you start over through anything. Divorce makes you start over, a breakup, a move, you lose your job, all of those things is a reset
Mhm.
of your life. I would say, like, if you were having a life quake and you're like, "How am I gonna get through this?" That's who my podcast is for. Anyone who's searching for how am I going to make this through? Because it touches on all the things, starting over in divorce and heartbreak, of course, but it's also like not caring so much what people think. These are all things I had to learn with the podcast and putting content out there and posting on LinkedIn. Talk about why ch- going down your own lane, no matter, because a lot of times we make decisions for what other people think we should do. That's a true for all of us. So it's really about if you feel like you're wandering the wild mess of life, the podcast has something for you. And I also have some guides that on my website, some like
Okay.
free offerings as well. And then people can always DM me. I I have I'm still working out. I get asked a lot to do the one-on-one stuff. I haven't yet because I really want to keep focusing my energy on the podcast, but it's definitely something if anyone's ever interested, I have been open to that in the past. But a lot more to
When
come.
when you say when you say one-to-one stuff, like, do you have a certification you've gone through in here, or is it just a life thing, or
Yeah,
how
it's
does that?
more the life thing, and that's so funny that you asked that
Yeah.
because I have a lot of friends that are life coaches, and
Uh-huh.
you kind of do the certification. But me, it wouldn't be telling someone what to do. It would more be like, tell me your challenge and let me reframe this, and less about your direction and more about what you're not seeing. I
Yeah.
think through the podcast, I do that a lot.
It almost sounds like they would be hiring you to be their best friend through this.
Sometimes but
I
funny is
think
that
that's
the benefit I've
valid,
al
right?
yeah, I've always had that, even in my friends at a younger age, I've kind of the guidance. It's not me, "This is what you should do." It's more
Yeah.
like guiding the mind to because
Mhm.
human psychology, my degree is in communications and marketing, so I studied a lot of human psychology. I love that
Sure.
in advertising and strategy, and I understand that very, very well. But yeah, so it's always just tied together really well for me, strategy, and even in the corporate world, and you probably know, you learn so much about behavior, what works, how the hierarchy works, how you maneuver decisions, the perception of people, and all of that is I love like neuroscience. I study that a lot. So yeah, yeah. Lots of fun
Beautiful.
psychology stuff.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. And I think there's a real need for it, obviously, because people are following your podcast and they're giving you reviews and they're asking for it. So yeah, that's um really I like that a lot. When you look back at who you were before you started podcasting, have you noticed how you've changed?
Oh my gosh. Yes. It there's so much that's changed. I feel like my level of self-trust has like and
Mm,
leadership has just been I literally tell myself all the time, and I recommend this to other people, like, when you do any hard thing, small or big, like, I'm so proud of myself. I look at my mirror all the time, and I say that because there's parts of us that how we're suppressing for so long that we're not doing what felt aligned with my soul, and that's so heavy when you have been carrying it, and when you finally allow yourself to just do the thing and it doesn't really matter about everyone else, like, you're not hurting anyone, and you did the thing, you showed up for yourself, you didn't self-abandon, which I did for so, so long, then the podcast has allowed me to just show up in ways that I wasn't even ready to, but I just kept doing. And when you put yourself in a position that you're not ready to, and then you see yourself do it, you have this like admiration and self love that is like worth more than anything that you could ever ever have, you know? So it's just so important. And it doesn't even have to be podcasting, but that thing that's on your heart to move in the direction to do it and let go of the how, let go of the what will everyone think, let go of the, is this who I am because I used to be this person? Like you can change your life at any time. And that's what the podcast showed me because I went from corporate, private social media account, wife, just doing my little life to like, I'm putting myself out there and I'm telling my stories. And I'm just at the beginning, Donna. Like, I have things that I'm not even at a position to like share that I know will be impactful. So I know this journey is a long haul for us. You know what I mean? If it's
Mhm.
what you're called to do. So sometimes in this society now, it's just we want this immediate satisfaction to to know that it's working. But I can tell you through this journey of podcasting is that it it's repetition. You just keep going and the path rebuilds itself. Take one step and then you don't need to know all 20. Just let
Mhm.
go with the current, if that's the way you know your heart's telling you to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the way that you phrase that. So when you're podcasting, do you have it on your calendar to say, "Oh, it's podcasting time," or just are you always inspired to, "Oh, I want to share this next thing?"
I feel like I'm pretty always inspired, you know? Like, sometimes
Yeah.
I'm on Threads, I don't know if you kinda like Twitter, and I'm like people are like, "I run out of things," like, other podcasters, like, "I don't know what to talk about." I feel like I always have a number of but I try to record in the moment, if I
Oh,
can.
very
Like,
good.
I'll try to
Mhm.
schedule that I'm balancing the structure, the masculine structure for my feminine flow and go kind of vibe, but if I feel really inspired of an episode, I try to because I truly believe people can feel the energy and the authenticity when you're inspired, which is why I personally don't script. I'm not saying there's not value in it, but for me, what I'm trying to emulate and get across to my listeners and my audience is just the raw, real me. And I can't show up that way if it's already planned out because just like life, you try to paint a pretty picture and plan it all out and there's other
Mhm.
plans.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're capturing it just on the go, like on your phone or something and not in a studio?
Yeah, so I am recording in a studio,
Okay.
right now, so I started recording, so I'll put it in my phone and then I'll book time, in the studio.
Mhm.
I also am starting to do, like, more of my guests, I think, will be in the studio, and I'll do more at home. Just listening back, I realized just being alone in my house without, like, the production guy, even though I still want those reps, is a different voice, right? Like, because not like it's completely different, but I feel like a little more like we're sitting on the couch together, Don, you know what I mean?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so I think some of my early listeners will maybe miss that really raw, vulnerable me because I started it on my couch vibe. And I want them to still have that even as it grows because it's
Yeah,
really important to me to keep that authenticity and really resonate with them, on that level. Not that I don't think I can in the studio. I just think there's different energies that come
sure.
from all.
Yeah, I know, I love that idea of just capturing it in the moment too, just being free enough to say it doesn't always have to be. Because in post-production, there's so much you can do to make it the studio sound quality beyond.
100%. Well, and like I've even started being like, I'll just record some and have them in backlog, right? Because life happens, and sometimes you're not, there could be a moment where I'm less inspired, and sometimes, I the hard part is when I like recording in the moment because when it's on my heart, I'm like, yeah, but if I wait, 2 weeks to get to the studio, my whole life could have changed so much. You don't think it does, but when you're telling your vulnerable, low stories and something hits you really hard, because there was a moment, Donna, like I had the studio booked, I already had it planned out, the 2 episodes, and something happened in my life last year that was so hard for me. And literally one of my lowest points. Like I thought, during divorce, you think, oh my gosh, I hit a low point. And then you're like, what? There's a lower one. And I'd already had the studio booked, and I went in, and the episode was called, "If life has hit you real hard, this one's for you." And I was planning on talking about something completely different, but I was like, there's no way I can be authentic about that thing because I'm absolutely not at a point to even speak on that topic in my mind. And it's not that I couldn't have done it, but it wouldn't have felt authentic to the people I care so much that listen. And
Hmm.
I just wanted to be real. And it's surprising. It was so, I knew it was the right path because after that, I couldn't believe how many people reached out and were like, that's exactly what I needed to hear. So I
Wow.
knew that it was right we don't have to follow the strategy perfect. In podcasting, there's no perfect path. The best path is the one that feels most aligned with who you are and the message you feel called to share. That's the path. It's not a quick plug and play strategy. That's not the long game. That could probably be a short game. Just coming from corporate and doing strategy. You can make it work in the short term, but that ain't going to win you the market in the long term. And not that I just know mine is to reach a lot of people in the long, like a lot of people, and that means playing the long game. And I'm
Yeah.
all right with that.
Yeah, it's very freeing to know that you're just walking in purpose and not in somebody else's strategy.
I think that's how it can be sustainable. Like for anyone listening
Sure.
that's like thinking about a podcast, it's like just like the zone of genius, like we talked about. If it's what you love in your heart, it doesn't feel like work. And I never understood that before podcasting, how much I love it. And it feels, I mean, writing, I write too, but that is like, that's what I would love to wake up and find joy to do every day. And so it doesn't really feel like work. It feels like purpose, like you said. And that is a gift I wish for everyone, honestly, is to have that enablement to move in purpose.
Yeah. Wow. So, as we start to wrap things up today, Heather, I always have this belief that there's a listener right now that's listening to this conversation and they're listening to your voice, and there's something you're meant to tell them that they're waiting to hear. What is that you want to say to that listener?
That you will find your way in whatever you want to do. You always will find your way. And I said this recently, but on one of my episodes, but you have been through every hard thing. You've gone through every single hard thing that you've ever been faced with. And that's why you're here. That's why you're listening to this podcast. That's why, right? And so not to doubt yourself because you have 100% track record of being here and doing the thing. And life is not that serious. I think coming from my background and what I learned before is I felt like I had to be so buttoned up and perfect. And I think when you finally take the chains of everyone's perception and trying to be an image, the level of freedom that you have is so big. No one's going to remember. And but the episode I'm releasing tomorrow, Donna, I have to tell you, like, my dad, he has a whole journey that I talked about, but he was his authentic self before he passed away. No one's saying anything about the things that he did that were like weird. Like I talk about him juggling, and at the episode I say juggle anyways, because he just showed up in joy as himself. And now that man is no longer here. No one really cares that much. We're stopping and preventing ourselves from the life that we're meant to lead based on fear of perception, fear of this, fear of that. That isn't why we're here. And like we kind of touched on the beginning, Donna, anyone listening, we're here to grow and expand. That's our whole purpose. So if where you're at in life right now isn't, you're not growing and expanding and you feel the tug to, just listen to it. It'll be the greatest gift you'll ever receive. I'm not saying it'll be easy, but it definitely will be more worth it than the hard you're dealing with right now. It's so do that. Just trust yourself a little more. It'll take you so far in life to have that level of self-trust and self-love and self-leadership.
Beautiful. That's a perfect place to wrap up this episode of Loving the Journey. So, Heather Morgan, thank you so much for sharing your journey so openly with us today, and all the nuggets that go along with it, just being your authentic self. And if you're listening and you want to hear more from Heather, you can go to wanderingthewildmess.com. Wandering the Wild Mess, that's also the name of the podcast, so you can connect with Heather. The socials are on there, and podcast is on there, wanderingthewildmess.com. And we'll put the link in the show notes. So again, thank you for spending your time with us. And until next time, keep on loving the journey. Bye for now. Hey there, it's Donna. Here's something we're thinking about. What if the reason your ideal clients are not finding you has nothing to do with your expertise and everything to do with 5 specific gaps in your online presence that you can't see yet? The Influence Scorecard was designed to show you exactly where those gaps are and what to do about them. We will review your podcast, your website, or your social media presence using the 5 tenets of influence: be seen, be heard, be easy to follow, be the solution, and be paid with purpose. And we're going to deliver a personalized review to your inbox within 48 hours. Every scorecard gets human eyes on it before it reaches you, and it's completely free. Click the link on the screen or go to 365businessmaker.com/scorecard to get started today.